Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Belinda Doveston. Welcome to the Introduction to the Contribution Compass webinar this morning. And I trust for those of you who are in South Africa that you've had a very special Youth Day celebrations on Friday, and really appreciate for all of you the commitment of time of just giving a little bit of time of learning a little bit around contribution and what it might mean for your team. So really your presence here is highly, highly appreciated. On behalf of all the team, thank you for joining us this morning. Right, in today's webinar, we really are going to take a little bit of a journey thinking about contribution and how we can think differently around contribution, and particularly what the contribution compass means and what it's all about. I know that many of you have arrived here through people that you know, through our team who have reached out to you over the last few weeks to say perhaps you'd like to learn a little bit about what we do, and so I affirm that your time with us this morning over the next hour, just under an hour, is very well spent and inspires you for the week to come. Just a quick introduction. As I said, my name is Belinda Doveston, and I'm the co-founder of the Contribution Compass and leading the team at the moment, and really brings me a lot of pleasure to be able to share some of the things that we've learned in working with teams and bringing balanced and effective teams to our clients over the many, many years we've been working with similar platforms and approaches. So as I mentioned, I really hope that you get a lot of value out of the time that you've agreed to invest with us this morning. Okay, so let's get started. Let's talk about contribution. And I love stories. I think storytelling is an amazing way of talking about metaphor and meaning and understanding ourselves in a richer and deeper way. And the metaphor that I want to share with you this morning is the idea of what it takes to get a boat to plane on the sea. Now, you'll notice from a lot of our branding and imagery, we talk about this expedition across the water, and the water symbolizing the deep untapped potential of human talent, and the expedition we go on to explore this. It's not something we conquer, it's something that we uncover in people as we go along this journey. And so the idea of traversing across water, of an expedition, of exploration to new worlds is a really important part of this metaphor that we want to share with you. Now, today in particular, I want to talk about what it takes to get a boat to plane on the water. For those of you who aren't boaters or people interested in boating, you know, when you put a boat in the water and you've got a whole lot of people on the boat, it takes time and effort and the right kind of speed to slowly build up momentum until such time as, instead of sitting and resting in the water, you literally are riding not just through the water but on top of the water. And when the boat planes, we get to that position, we're able to be extremely agile and to move with a lot less power. There's a lot less energy we have to put into this boat to move really quickly. And I thought that I wanted to share with you this analogy this morning because it's such a rich way of understanding what it means to build teams and to mobilize the journey forward. Just as a note, we've had one question saying that the sound keeps cutting on and off. If you have sound issues, perhaps just pop me a message that I know that it's not just one or two, that it's perhaps a broader issue. So if you are having issues, just pop me a message. There's a little questions box where you can pop a question in and use that to make comments, and then we'll work with it. I'll keep my eye on that as we go along. So if you are having any issues, just let me know and we can work with it. Okay, cool. All right, so the idea of this boat planing, we get this energy, we build, put effort in, and we get the boat planing, and then, shoo, there we go, zippy zap across the sea. And it's such a wonderful analogy for what happens in building our teams. Whether your team, we're talking about an executive team, perhaps you are the CEO and you have an executive team around you and that's your ship that you're thinking about, or perhaps a wider organization or a specific team within your company. And if you're a coach or a mentor, perhaps that's a team that you're supporting in their development. So perhaps visualize for a moment, what does your ship, your yacht, your boat look like? Your team, if you had to turn that into a picture of a boat, is it a tugboat? Is it a is it a dinghy? What kind of boat do you have? Is it a lean, mean super yacht? What does this thing look like? Your team, if you had to encapsulate that into an image, into a metaphor. And we find that when we build teams, we tend to build up speed, and we struggle, and we struggle to get momentum, and then suddenly something happens and we go, whoop, suddenly we're planning, we're on the water, and then we add a team member, and speed goes down, and we kind of are wobbling, and then there's choppy waters, and we have to change the speed and change direction, attack across the wind. So working with people and working with building teams, it's a very dynamic process, and this from working with others, whether you've been in a team you've been part of or a team that you have led. And so one of the things that we need to do when we put every single new team member, and sometimes when a team member falls off, both for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons, that we have this way of keeping and maintaining as much as possible the momentum and the energy of the collective team, of going towards a destination that you as a team have agreed is the right one, and keeping that momentum and keeping that focus. So one of the things that we talk about in why is this so important? Why is this momentum so important? What is the underlying purpose? And perhaps you have an underlying purpose that's not our purpose, but I'll share with you our view. Our view is that real economic impact in our economies doesn't happen through governments doing things better. Government will always have its challenges that we know about. Real economic upliftment in our countries and our economies happens through business. And business happens through empowered, amazing people, individuals, and collectives, groups, teams, who are doing what they do and loving it every day and creating value and making a contribution. And so what I wanted to do is just share with you some of the ideas or the metaphors that could help us understand this idea of contribution. If we can, this is what our belief is that if we can find a way to mobilize people and give them an opportunity to do what they do best every day, just think what is possible. Just think what this ship, boat, yacht, tug, whatever it is, could do if the team was all focused and literally on the same ship and operating as a team and really planning and flying with the wonderful things that you are trying to do as an organization. So just bear that in mind. We're going to come back and touch on this idea when we think about what is natural energy, and we define that in a few moments' time. So the space that we play in is that as a profiling platform methodology that the Contribution Compass brings. We are one of millions, again, millions may be a little bit dramatic, but we are one of many different types of tools that you could use to mobilize your team or to improve the performance that you've got from your team. And you might have different things that you are struggling with that you are trying to do. So one of the key things around any kind of tool improving team growth and development and acceleration is really understanding what kind of tool you need. And there are many. So hence the fact that there are many different ships that you can choose to take you on this journey. But what I wanted to do is just open up the floor for a poll. So I'm going to load on a poll onto the screen, and this poll is going to give you a variety of different options. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to click on the challenge that you are facing. What is your biggest team challenge at the moment? Just choose one, click on it, and as those answers come in, then we'll share that onto the screen. So perhaps you're struggling with efficiently getting the right people on board, and by efficiently I mean that your recruitment processes are really effective in delivering the right people and not wasting unnecessary time in getting people on board. So perhaps recruitment and the cost of recruitment is a key requirement for you. Perhaps keeping your team engaged and motivated. We talk a lot about employee engagement within the Contribution Compass team, and we'll cover that in a future webinar. But really, what do we need to do to keep people excited and engaged and involved in their work? That they come to work because they love it, not because it's a job that gives a paycheck. We want highly engaged team members. Perhaps maximizing each individual's talent and finding ways of doing that, tools to support it to do that, is your key requirement. Perhaps taking action on performance is a real issue. And what I should have done is put tackling performance issues as its own separate question, because we all battle with taking action on performance issues. But how do we know when it is a behavioral issue versus a skills issue? Are they willing or are they able? And so perhaps that's your biggest challenge at the moment. Or maybe getting that collective all on the ship at the right time is indeed one of your key criteria, maybe growing a unified team focused on a collective outcome. So just go and tick one option, one thing that you'd like, that you think is your biggest challenge at the moment, and then we'll go from there. Okay, a couple of seconds left, and then we will close the poll. All right, so what I'm going to do is share with you the results on the screen, and you'll see there that of the entire group, we had 14%, so we've got no issues with recruitment, which is quite interesting. We'll deal with recruitment as a separate topic in a webinar later this month. 14% of us said keeping the team engaged and motivated, 43% maximizing each person's talent, and 29% said taking action on performance issues, and 14% growing a unified team. Really interesting. So it seems like maximizing each person's talent and contribution is, as a group, really the most powerful thing that we had to do, which is great. So it really helps me focus on what you're needing from today's session. Okay. So next step, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the origins of the contribution compass and profiling tools. And what you'll see in front of you is a picture of a very wise man, Carl Jung, and he's often known as we call him the bridge to psychometry, because if you think about most of the psychometric type tools, personality type tools, and profiling applications, most of them go back to this gentleman. And Carl Jung, as an amazing psychologist, worked with the idea of archetypes and has played a very powerful role in our understanding of human behavior. And from his work, we found the work of Myers-Briggs, and obviously the Myers-Briggs type indicator. And basically, from everything that you see in most of the psychometric tools, all the the 8 profile-based tools somehow lead back to Jung. And Jung got his inspiration from an ancient tool called the I Ching. So you might not have heard of the I Ching, but the I Ching is an ancient Chinese philosophy that dates back to 4,000, 5,000 plus years old. Ancient, probably the most ancient resource that we have, written resource that we have today. And that really says that in life there are these eight primal forces, these 8 kind of energies that drive everything, from the weather to human behavior to everything. So this is not an I Ching talk. We can do that at a later time if you're interested. But really this is about thinking that really when we think about personality type and strengths and zone of flow and whatever terms you might put around it, what we're really talking about is an alignment to some really ancient foundational knowledge around this idea called our natural energy. And so when we looked at working with the contribution compass and developing it, we said, okay, there's lots of tools that all tie back to this 8-based factor, and there are, for example, the Enneagram is a 9-based factor, similar idea, just a different basis of calculation. We said, let's go back to the source, and luckily I had been a student and a teacher of the I Ching for 18 plus years, and I said, okay, we have to go back to the source and go and check our thinking back to the original, which is a 5,000-year-old piece of information. So that's what we did. We went back and we've been working with similar tools for 10 years in placing directors around boards and building teams and focusing on developing team dynamics. And we really reached the end of what we could achieve with the tools. And one of the things that we faced was the challenge of focusing teams on contribution and focusing people on not just the personality, because personality and contribution can be completely different. If we have a tool that tests personality, that's very good that you're a friendly, sociable person, but is that really true for what your contribution is on a day-to-day basis, or what your contribution should be? And so that was our journey. We went right back to the beginning. We refocused on what is contribution all about, and what would it mean for us in the workplace and for our teams, and how do we turn contribution into financial return. If we can't take a tool and translate it into value on the bottom line, what are we doing? And like any tool, it's only as good as our ability to apply it. So you'll hear me talk a lot about application, application, application. It's all very exciting that you've done your profile, whatever the profile type is, but what do you do with it? How do you turn that into a result? And the application is the magical thing related to that. Okay, so on that note, thank you, Jung, for everything that you've contributed to our understanding of human nature. Let's talk a little bit now around natural energy and how we translate this idea of the I Ching, Jung's archetypes, into this idea of what natural energy is about. So, natural energy, as we define it, is the energy that is innate and forefront of our behavior under pressure. So we see our natural energy when we are under stress. And let's face facts, in today's world, when we're not under stress, and what happens is that when we are under stress, or we have to make a decision now, and we don't have time to overanalyze it, or be overly critical or sit too long with it, we make decisions based on our natural energy. And I'll tell you how we've seen this play out. It's so amazing. We do an exercise in one of our workshops where facilitators are trained to lead people through this process of what happens when you're not in your flow. So you go through this case study scenario where you have to debate and come up with a decision as a team. And you can't be your own profile. You have to be your opposite or something that's not familiar. And you can see the pain on people's faces as they have to try and engage from an energy that's not their natural energy. They've got to solve the problem. They've only got 10, 15 minutes in the exercise. But the process of trying to do that when it's not in your natural flow is it's like the longest 15 minutes of your life, basically, when you do the exercise. And then you get a chance to swap over to your natural energy and solve the problem through that. And you solve it in literally 3 minutes. So what's really interesting is that unless we are conscious of where is the place that we're working from, we will, we will go into our natural energy anyway. But how more powerful could it be that as a team, we understand each other's natural energies and we understand how we might react under pressure, and therefore as a collective, we can work very effectively, like these chaps in this picture. We can work really effectively to leverage each other, to find ways of working to our greatest strengths as a collective rather than just being critical of a person always responding in that particular way. And we're going to go through some examples of what that might be. So natural energy is what happens in a critical moment when you're under stress or you have to make a decision. What happens? And we will always respond from our natural energy. That is what happens. We tend to also accumulate towards us people who are like us. So if you're a catalyst, I'm just using one of the profiles as an example. As a catalyst, you might tend to recruit lots of catalysts. So when there's a crisis, we all jump in and come up with new ideas. That's how we solve problems. That is how companies fall over. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the 4 types of natural energy. You'll notice when you go through and complete the profiler that you'll be asked questions that start to accumulate a distribution of the ways that you would typically respond in work and contribution type environments. And there are 4 types of natural energy. There's activating energy, which is at north. There's inspiring in east, sustaining in south, and tempering in the west. Activating energy, that red color, it is about energy, about movement, about starting new things, about drive and dynamic energy. And you'll see those, you might be able to spot yourself where you fit into this as we go through it. And it's really about go, 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 new ideas, never sit still, never stop. We're always innovating and moving forward and coming up with new things. So that's activating energy. Inspiring energy is a beautiful warming flame. And that is the energy of building people and inspiring people and creating connections between people, warming and inspiring the team. So that's the people element. Down the bottom is sustaining energy. So that's like, imagine this is like earth, whereas activating is sky. So sustaining is ground, seeds planted in the earth, fertile soil, supporting life, nurturing growth. It's very slow, it's very supportive, it's very long-term and holding the creative process, bringing things and ideas to life. So that's their sustaining energy. And on the far left, we have the tempering energy. And tempering is like, I use often the analogy of for those of you who've watched Blade Masters or Forged in Fire, one of these programs on at the moment, where you make a blade. And you take the metal and you heat it up and you bash it and you heat it up and you bash it, and then when you're ready you shove it in the water, the oil, and then the metal hardens. So there's a process of refining and tinkering it back in the flames and back in the water and back. And the tempering energy brings analysis and precision and refinement and that tinkering to create the best possible efficiency and flow in the organization. So these 4 natural energies combine to give us our 8 profiles. And each person, when you do the profile, you'll see you have a distribution of percentages across your 4 natural energies, and the collection and the distribution of those gives us 8 profiles. Now, what's really, really important for any profiling tool, and no different for the contribution compass, is that we don't want to put people into boxes. And if we try and put people into boxes, we get resistance. What we are trying to do is we are trying to help individuals understand where is the sweet spot. So when you get your profile and you look at your results, you'll see you have those 4 percentages, and you can put 2 catalysts side by side, one that's very high tempering and one that's high activating, for example, and they present as 2 totally different catalysts. Yet under pressure, how we resolve issues is we create new things, we create new ideas, we go into problem-solving mode and tackle the nearest problem that's in front of us, as opposed to some of the other profiles who would tackle problems in a totally different way. So under pressure, that's the idea of the natural energy. We respond in a particular way. So when you complete the profiler, that's what it gives you. And we don't put people into boxes. We say, like Malcolm Gladwell says, 10,000 hours, when you start to develop a level of competency and focus on mastering your contribution, you start accelerating the personal return that comes to you, because you're now focusing in a particular direction. Like, imagine that boat carving its way through the water. And the more we carve through the water in a particular direction with the same boat, we start building momentum, we start gathering resources, we start developing self-awareness, and that creates the plane of the boat. The boat lifts up the water and can mobilize so much faster and can draw the right people to support. So this whole idea of these profiles is really about getting to grips with how to mobilize ourselves and our teams with the least amount of effort and pain. Okay, so and the greatest amount of happiness as well. Let's not put only the negative on there. So the 8 profiles, I'm going to go through them really quickly. I'm going to cover the profiles later, I think in July. I'll cover at the end what date we'll do that. I will cover the profiles in more depth in a subsequent webinar if you're interested in learning more, and it'll be useful for you to have completed your profile by then as well, because you can really kind of unlock the value and ask me tons of questions, which was great. So the catalyst profile is really about accelerating change. You can see from the little glyph, it's that spark that goes whew, and just ignites people around and accelerates change. A great catalyst example would be Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, people who are visionary, who come up with these seemingly random ideas that are very powerful. Their gift is their ability to generate new ideas and to solve problems. They tackle things, they're headstrong, they go in there and they go where angels fear to tread, and they go off and they accelerate that change. So in your team, if you're needing something to be accelerated and move forward, catalyst energy is a fantastic energy to support you. Our second profile is what we call a champion. You will see from the little glyph in the orange circle, it looks like a little torch, and here we have our Olympic runner. It literally is a symbol of someone who holds the torch and shines the light for everyone else. A champion in your team is someone who blazes the trail, who's a brand ambassador, who can sell ice to an Eskimo. They literally are people who, once they have a clear vision of what they're selling, the idea, they don't have to come up with the idea or the product. But what they do is they take that product and they go, wah, like a loudspeaker. Okay, so in your team, if you've got a sales team, you want nice, high champion energy in your sales team, because those are people who are taking your idea to market and will carry that through and just make that enthusiastic support, drawing business back into your organization. Richard Branson, as an example, is a great example of a champion profile. And then we have a coach. A coach is all about igniting the greatness in others. The little glyph, I know how to explain this, but the little glyph in orangey yellow is literally the sound of a coach's whistle that blows, like the pay attention, come on guys, let's focus, let's huddle, let's have a clear vision, let's go forth and be awesome. So the coach energy is warming and inspiring, igniting. You just can't help being, feeling warm and fuzzy around a coach, because they have people at the center of their universe, and people will be where they go to under pressure. So under crisis, the coach will say, who do I need to talk to? Whereas a catalyst will say, what product can I come up with? Now, if we don't understand that difference, it makes it really difficult for us to maximize the value out of our team and to give them the opportunity to be great in every moment. Our connector is the fourth profile and really is it's almost an image of pulling together different things, 4 different elements, bringing the 4 elements together. You can think of that as water, earth, fire, and air, bringing those 4 elements together to a center point and building bridges, building things together. The connectors are fantastic at mediating, at understanding the balance between execution or delivery of your promise and the team and driving the team to deliver on that promise. They're great kind of execution managers, particularly in a service type business where there's relationships, there's people, there's a whole variety of things that need to be drawn together. And of course the connector also builds that web. They are the individual that are naturally networking and building relationships in the market. That is what they're absolutely gifted at doing, is building bridges, building relationships, and creating a market and a web between your organization and others. So within your team, they will often be the peacemakers, the ones connecting people together and finding similarities and creating unity within your team. Mark Zuckerberg is really, in my view, a great example of a connector. You look right back in his life, his first system he developed in his early teens was this platform that would talk to different computers between his home and his father's business, almost like an SMS or messaging type platform. And it was all about building connections, bringing things together and putting everything on the same platform. So a platform is a key word for connector as well. Our custodian is grounded and nurturing. Now, you might find, why is there a person on a horse in front of us? But what the custodian does is they bring the idea, so the little glyph is the idea from the catalyst, bringing down into the earth. The custodian is the rich, beautiful, dark soil that takes the idea and brings it to life. They are like a herd. They look after the farm animals. They care about their family. They want to have a sense of belonging. They want to have a place and time, and they're very concerned about timing and about place and about everything being in a process, following a process. So the high catalysts think, we don't need this kind of custodian energy. We just want to create ideas. But without the custodian holding the promise, holding the customer long-term relationship, being concerned about honoring the promise, doing what we said we would do, without that energy in a team, you can't deliver on these great ideas we've created. So the custodian is, as all the profiles, equally as important. Our next profile is called the cultivator. So now we're moving around, and the cultivator's got a bit of the sustaining natural energy I talked about. Now with tempering. Now it's refining and tweaking. It's not just the grounded, it's not the earth, it's now the plants and tweaking the crops. The cultivator really nurtures things over the long term. And a great way of thinking about it, one of our partners shared the story that his dad is a horticulturist and said, when you plant a tree, you don't just dig a hole for the tree, the root ball of the tree you're going to plant. You think about what size is that tree going to be when it's fully grown, and you dig a hole that size and fill it with all the nutrients that tree will need over its lifespan, and then you plant the tree in that. What a great way of understanding the cultivator natural energy. They're long-term, they're great at understanding risk, they think far ahead, they see complexity, and they find a way of putting them into a project. The project managers are natural cultivators. They have this amazing ability to put things together over the long term and nurture that growth, is to work towards tweaking, building this long term. So if you're a catalyst or a champion and your overriding drive is a sense of urgency, everything must be done now or yesterday, done. And then you have a cultivator in your team who needs a long time to think through things. They will take forever to think through. And they'll come up months later saying, you know, when you said that, that was really difficult for me because I really felt hurt by what you said. And as a champion catalyst, you'll say, but why didn't you say that when it happened? That's not how cultivators work. So when we understand the people around us, we can actually help people engage at the right time and be productive in how we relate to each other. Then we have number 7 is our conductor. Literally, this is a conductor of an orchestra. It's a very enthusiastic conductor here in the image that's about to pop on your screen. And the conductor is all about getting all those instruments to play exactly the right tune at the right time and according to the music that's written down in front of them. An orchestra works because it's a collective effort. It creates beautiful music because each musician knows when to do their bit, and they do their bit at the right time in the right way, and they all follow the script. Can you imagine an orchestra that does kind of ad-libs, each musician does their own thing? You only have one main special performer who perhaps does an ad-lib on a special instrument or an opera singer or on a piano. The rest of the orchestra must follow the script, follow the music that's in front of them. And so a conductor is a natural energy that creates efficiency and this kind of refinement and precision, that every piece of note plays at the right time in the right way. So you can imagine in an organization how incredibly valuable that is. That's someone who's naturally gifted at making everything work like clockwork. But it's not the only profile. There are 7 other profiles that are equally as important. So if you're a conductor and you think that everyone else is not efficient, is wasting your time, understand that it is one of the natural energies, not the only one. And then the 8th profile is what we call the calibrator. The calibrator is the little glyph image at the top left is actually a spirit level, and it's about tweaking and refining and improving the system. So calibrators have this ability of combining, activating and tempering energy. They like working on innovative things, on improving things, but it's not coming up with the idea from scratch necessarily. It's taking the idea and making that idea duplicable and turning it into a cash generating machine. So calibrators improve, they refine ideas, they find ways of duplicating. The idea of a franchise type system is an example of a calibrator at their best, where someone creates the idea, the concept, but the calibrator then brings it to life through a duplicable operating model. And so your calibrators in your team will do the same thing. They need opportunities to refine and tinker, and under pressure, that's what they'll do first. They'll try and improve and tweak the system, not go reach out to people. Okay. So each one of us, for each of our profiles, we've got a job to do to firstly develop our own sense of awareness, of really developing our self-awareness and our understanding of what is our talent, what is our zone of flow, that one path, that sweet spot, that if we've focused on pushing that sweet spot and realizing there are other areas we aren't great at, and sometimes we have to, we have to step outside of what's natural to get the job done. But it's understanding that allows us to do that well, and then understanding how to build a team around us to support us. So what I'd like to do next is that's really just a little kind of a very quick breeze through the profiles. There's a lot of detail underneath each profile that I can share with you at a later stage, certainly. And what I'd like to do now is the application. You heard me talk earlier about how application is absolutely important. And likewise, we've shared today, thanks to you, that really 43% of you said that maximizing each person's talent and their contribution is your biggest challenge. So building effective teams is our biggest challenge. Building teams that sustain, that keep that plane up on the water, that mobilize, that self-sustains. If you're finding yourself exhausted, if you're a leader in your team, it might be because your team is still, the boat is still in the water. It hasn't got enough momentum yet. The individuals in the team haven't yet, as a collective, mobilized and got themselves going. So really what we're talking about here is that building an effective team requires a diversity of skills and abilities so that the team as a whole can achieve more than its sum of its parts. Synergy, working together, understanding that the boat requires all 8 profiles. And in order for us to mobilize, we need a balance of natural energy. And this requirement is absolutely critical. So I'm going to just share with you a couple of key ideas, couple of application techniques. And then what I'm going to do is specifically focus on the one called balancing the team, because it's quite an interesting, different way of approaching team development. So some of the key techniques that our partners and facilitators learn how to work with is firstly how to start a new business or a new team in the zone of flow. If, for example, you start a team, you're a champion profile, and you had to recruit 2 people, another one first, and then a second person. Perhaps it's a new project or it's a new business you're starting. Which profile would be the right profile to do next? And what tends to happen is we tend to not do that in a very thoughtful process. We kind of just reach out, and what we tend to do is reach out people who are like us. So we land up with teams, and we see this through the team assessments. We land up with startup businesses or incubated businesses that actually are all catalysts. Okay, how do we move that forward? Because we're going to be stuck in new idea generation as our as our solution to every problem. So how we start a new business or a project or a team in flow, there's a way of building that team up and choosing the profiles based on the team. So that's a particular one. Is what we call aligning profile to position, which is really about recruitment and taking recruitment right back to when you decide you need a new team member where you've got a position to fill. What is the natural energy of the position? What would create the greatest acceleration for your entire team, bearing in mind the balance of your team and for the position, choosing which profile you want, and writing all your recruitment materials in alignment with the profile you're wanting to attract, and following a process of making sure that, well, obviously without being discriminatory, that you have the right profile and position aligned in the end of the day. So in our webinar towards the end of the month, I'm going to focus specifically on maximizing the value of the recruitment process and some of the things that you can do in the journey to do that. Then we have growing the team consciously, which says, okay, you have a team now. This ties into what we're saying, that the predominant need is maximizing each person's talent. So growing the team, you now have a cultivator in your team in this position. Is there a way that you can support their growth if the position and the profile are aligned, or is there a way that we can find a better, more harmonious position and move people around in an ethical way? So growing the team consciously is about getting the most out of each person's profile. And one of the things we do that is think about what particular performance KPIs can we use to accelerate people's performance in alignment with their profile. Let's make it easy for people to achieve and be focused on performance in things that they are naturally talented at, i.e. their zone of flow. And then the fourth technique is balancing the team, which really takes a view that in a team context, now let's be specific about that, in a context where it's a management team, an executive team, or a board. In other words, it's a team that is responsible for a collective of some kind. In other words, it's not a specialist team. It isn't a sales team where you would expect a predominant champion energy. This is a team that's responsible for a significant part of an organization, or the organization as a whole. What we want is balance. Okay, now work-home life balance is something to aspire to. It's quite hard to achieve. What we're talking about here is balance of natural energy. So that when you look at your team and you look at your profiles, you literally are looking at each other from as many diverse points around your boardroom table or your management team table as possible, that you aren't all clustered on one angle. And when we talk about balancing the team in a later webinar, I'll show you some ways of thinking around what happens, some scenarios of what happens when we are very, very polarized in a particular area of the table. So I wanted to show you an example. These are obviously fake names, but real people's profile results coming out of the back end. And we have Christopher Columbus, Francis Drake, and Edward Blackbeard are three people making up a team. There's a champion, a catalyst, and a conductor. And there's a spread of their four natural energies. When we run an average across them, we see that this is quite a high activating team. They're 37.7%. They've got quite a bit of a problem on sustaining, 14.63. So what we'll see in this team is that they're excellent coming up with new ideas, of being innovative, of driving solutions, of moving forward. They'll be forefronts of their market, but being able to turn that into long-term sustainable results, into a long-term income, not so much. So the 14.63% will show itself in the inability to plan, because the ideas are flowing and the ideas don't turn into long-term operational process. Okay. So this team said, right, we need to sort this out. We need a custodian or someone with higher sustaining energy to bring balance. And we found Ernest Shackleton. And this is a custodian from our database who has the lowest activating energy. So I looked for what was the lowest one we could possibly find. This is an actual person with a 36.4% sustaining. We put Ernest in, and our amended average is an improvement, but not very improved. So we're still quite a high, just short of 31% activating energy. So you can start to see that even just adding one person may not be enough. If this is your team, maybe just one person coming in might not be enough. Maybe you need to get rid of, Francis Drake. Maybe the balance is so out that that's actually the challenge. So it's quite an interesting thing to think about balancing teams, and what happens when you think about your boardroom table and you think about the people sitting around the table. Where are they clustered? Is there a nice equal spread so that when we make decisions, we consider decisions from all angles? Or are we all on the coach side? You know, a lot of our work with team assessments, sometimes you'll get a team that's extremely polarized in one area. One particular team was a coach team, where there was a huge team, and this, like just coaches as far as the eye could see, and they all loved each other and had a wonderful time. But the financial performance of that team, the attention to numbers, the attention to improvement processes, not great. So when we think about a team that has a bigger role and responsibility to oversee a larger team, balance creates better decisions. Around a boardroom table, balance of natural energies does the same. We in particular have used this idea of balancing natural energies over the last 10 years to bring balance to boardroom tables, and can see the difference when a team is sitting around looking at the problem from 4 different angles. It might take a little bit longer to get to a decision, but when you get to a decision, it's sustainable, it's a great idea, it thinks about people, it thinks about a systems approach, about refinement, and it really is amazing to watch the difference that it can make. So that's just one of the application techniques that I wanted to share with you. What I wanted to take the next direction is talk about where might you go with us. If this is something that's interesting for you, what might be some of the options that you could take in your journey with us? If you're going to jump on our boat and join us for this journey, and I will open up a second poll in a couple of minutes' time. But perhaps the first step is to complete your own profile. Have a look at what is your natural energy, what is your zone of flow and your contribution. If you are the CEO of your company, I know many of you are on the call this morning, that as a leader, what does that mean for you? And what might be the impact, positively and negatively, of your profile? If you're a member of a team, are you actually in your zone of flow? Is your position aligned to your profile? So completing your profile is the first step. And if you would like a debrief to go with that, one of our facilitators can help you with that. We don't bundle debriefs in with a profiler like some of the other tools. You know, it's part of keeping those separate. If you'd like to, that we can also organize that for you. Okay, the second aspect might be to profile your team and to do a team assessment. So maybe what you want to do is say, well, how imbalanced is our team, and what is the personality of our team? So what we do in a team assessment is you're going to do your profiles of your team members, and then we do a team assessment. One of our accredited partners or facilitators does the assessment for you, where they analyze and have a look at the balance of natural energies across your team, the type of business you're in, the type of team that you're looking at, and what might be some of the opportunities and challenges that you as a team have, and therefore what's your personality. If it turns out that your team has the personality or the profile of a catalyst, what does that mean, and what are some of the things that you have to work around, and to what extent, how severe is the imbalance? What is the work required to create that balance? That might be a step, and maybe that's step 2 after you've done your profile. And then perhaps one of the things to consider is to join our partner program, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a moment, which is an opportunity if you're an organization that would like to internalize the knowledge and to build the contribution compass within your team. The partner program is designed for that, as well as those who would like to use the contribution compass as part of your delivery. Perhaps you're an incubator or a coach or mentor or a trainer. There's an opportunity to build it in and to join our partner program. So very quickly around the partner program, I wanted to share with you some of the key criteria. One is that you could join us as an approved distributor, which is zero cost. It's just, are you in the right, you meet the criteria for a distributor. If you'd like to sell on profilers and get the distributor rate, and then the other option is to work towards becoming an accredited partner or a facilitator. Okay, so those are kind of the two areas or two zones of the partner program. There's a very low upfront investment, but a high return. So we'll share more if you're interested and you'd like to chat to us more. We'll take you through what that really means. But I can tell you that your upfront investment in your facilitator training with one-day program is covered, and there is zero royalties from that basis. As long as you stay as an accredited facilitator, you're in the game, okay? And then we take an incremental learning approach, a focus on applying skills that deliver value. Many years ago, in my previous role, I started a college and co-founded a college, and successfully sold that many years later. And the college was really innovative at the time. I think it still is, in terms of its approach of not only the learning for the students, but also how we trained facilitators and developed facilitators across the world. And we use this exactly the same process in the Contribution Compass Facilitator Program. My view is, and perhaps you've experienced this similar challenge, is if you go for a 2, 3, 4-day accreditation process, as I've done for many types of methodologies, it's amazing, it's exciting, and it's very intense, and then the 4 days finishes, and it's like, oh, my learning is only now beginning, because now I have to actually take everything I've learned, all the knowledge, and start applying it. And they often say the gap between a 4-day intensive program like that and actually turning your skills into reality, into value, is the biggest leap you ever have to make. And we want you to have as easy a flow through that. So incremental learning, keep on learning, take a piece of knowledge, practice it. Take a piece of knowledge, practice it. Learn and refine. So we have a peer review-based system. We have online learning and webinars, a variety of different things to help you really internalize the expertise. When you finish that last day and you've done your last set of assignments, the next day you should be able to be ready and good to go, step into a learning environment and run with your clients. Run with your internal teams. If you're an HR person or an internal designate within a company, take your teams and start from day one, start getting people's positions aligned to their profiles, etc. Very dynamic approach on how we do that, and also an international team. Every single group that we start, we have international people, South Africa, Africa, international, New Zealand, so we have this lovely international feel, which is really exciting for everybody, building an international team. There's ongoing development that we provide, obviously ongoing development in the tool, the platform, and the resources available to you, and obviously ongoing development to you as a partner in providing you access to new resources and ongoing learning. And a key part of us really, this is the nitty-gritty, an engaged community. Our focus is building the partner network, building the community, and supporting you to do what you love doing every single day. So I know there was a whirlwind tour through some of the partner program. Really trust that you've enjoyed it. And what I'd like to encourage you to do, if there are any questions that you have, is to just pop those into the question box over the next minute or so that they can pop up on my side and we can address them at the end. And really what I'd like to do next is say, are you ready to embark with us? Is this something that you've heard today that's of value to you? Can you see the opportunity there might be to maximize the talent in your team, in your own talent, finding, am I even doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? So I really encourage you to think about, are you ready to embark with us, and what is it that you're really looking for? And so what I'd like to do is put a last poll on the screen and just ask you to share with us, is there something specific that you're keen to experience? You can check off more than one, not just one, but perhaps you're keen to take the next step and would like to chat further. Perhaps you're specifically interested in profiling your team, or you'd like to join the partner program and learn more. Or perhaps it's, okay, cool, that's not for me, not what I'm here for, that's great. Feel free to put that too. And perhaps you're not yet ready, but just would like more information just to be kept abreast of developments and things as we go. So if you wouldn't mind checking in and marking off, you can do more than one if more than one applies to you, and we'll go through that. So what I'd like to share with you next are some of the events, while you're clicking along, some of the events that are coming up that you can experience and share in. And one of those events coming up is on Friday the 30th of June. I'll pop this back on the screen when we're done the poll, so that you can see that and have the dates. On Friday the 30th of June, same time slot as today, we'll be doing another webinar, so absolutely complimentary, welcome to join, called Maximizing Your Recruitment Investment. And what I'm going to be doing there is specifically going into a bit more detail on recruitment specifically, on stages of the recruitment process, and what might be some of the ways you could enhance the value of your recruitment process. Because we spend a lot of time in the recruitment process, and if you're investing in recruitment agency fees, that's a major investment too. You want to make sure you choose the right person and the person sticks and they add value and they're part of your team. So I'm going to be going into that in quite a lot more detail on Friday the 30th of June. And then we also have on Tuesday the 11th of July a lunchtime webinar from 12 to 1. We're just trying to move them around at different times so that we sort everyone else's diary, we're doing a webinar on the 8 pathways of talent and contribution. So I will focus a lot more on the actual profiles themselves and go through that. So it really will be useful to have your profile done ahead of the 11th of July, because then it'll be really valuable for you, and the 8 pathways of talent and contribution. So we'll go into the profiles in a bit more depth. And then our next facilitator program starts in August, and it consists of a 10 2-hour webinar sessions over a period of 5 months. And between each session, there's development work, resources, videos, reading, and practical application to do. And then the webinars, we focus on sharing and communal learning. So it's not teach time, it's focused on the group and what we've learned through the development, sharing and learning and engaging, and peer feedback. So that's the process. And thank you so much for clicking the little boxes on the poll. I really appreciate your input, really useful to us. And thank you, more importantly, for your time, and trust that there have been some interesting things, some thoughts planted in your mind, even if the journey with Contribution Compass doesn't go further, that there's something that you take away from the time you've invested this morning to think around how do we maximize contribution in our teams, how do we mobilize this boat and get the boat flying and planing on the water and creating contribution, and more importantly, how do we turn organizational contribution into economic contribution and having a bigger purpose that we're all aligned to. So thank you very much. I see there haven't been any questions that have come through. Please feel free to pop us questions or anything that you would like. We'll be in touch with you as a follow-up step. And thank you so much for your time today. It was really great to share this with you, and trust it's been of great value to you as well. Thanks so much, and have a fantastic week ahead. Well, hopefully we'll see you on Friday, the 30th of June for the next webinar at 8:30 on maximizing your recruitment investment. Thanks, and have a good day. Bye.